Let me tell you of a sailor, Harry Bridges is his name, an honest Union leader who the bosses tried to frame. He left home in Australia to sail the seas around. He sailed across the ocean to land in Frisco town. There was only a company union, the bosses had their way. A worker had to stand in line for a lousy $1 a day. When up spoke Harry Bridges, us workers got to get wise. Our wives and kids will starve to death if we don't get organized. Oh, the FBI is worried, the bosses, they are scared. They can't deport 6 million men, they know. And we're not gonna let them send Harry over the sea. We'll fight for Harry Bridges and build the CIO.
Harry Bridges was born in Australia in 1900. His prosperous, conservative, Catholic parents hoped he would carry on the family business. But young Harry Bridges wanted adventure, so at the age of 17, he went to sea. The more he traveled the world's ports, the more he winced at the poverty and grueling life of common people. In 1922, he settled in San Francisco to work as a dockside steel handler for $10 or less a week. The rest is the legend of Harry Bridges.
And he, in 1922, came ashore in San Francisco, where he sort of started his early union activity. It's kind of a period of a lot of labor repression in San Francisco, or just all over the world. And he sort of cuts his teeth in this sort of a depressed period for labor.
I wouldn't say it was a matter of being indignant or outraged. It was I was taking care of myself. To take care of myself, I had to line up with other people and to help take care of them was one of those things. Well, you had a slogan, Workers of the World Unite. It's still a good slogan. It's an old Marxist slogan. I still use it. And that's how simple it was. Workers of the world unite. You got nothing to lose but your change. Still as good as the day it was said. We still operate by it. At least I try to.
So the lead up to 1934 is that there's a strike in 1919, and that strike ends in failure. And that's the failure of that strike sort of harkens this new period into the 1920s and up until the 1934 strike, in which there's a repressive workplace environment. There's a system of hiring called the Shape Up, which is this very degrading hiring system where people have to sort of go down to the docks and vie for jobs. They're often get jobs through bribery, through sometimes you would have to bribe someone. There's stories of people bribing the employers by allowing them to date female relatives. There's other stories of having to bribe them financially with one employer, I believe, set up a fake kind of workplace raffle with an item that they could buy raffle tickets to, but the raffle was never drawn.
Longshoremen demanded a union-controlled hiring hall to ensure equal access to jobs. They called for the end of the Shape-Up. For their work, they demanded a decent wage and working conditions. When the employers refused to negotiate, longshoremen in a united front struck the entire Pacific coast. Seamen joined the strike, and all shipping came to a virtual standstill.
But I still belong to the school, and where you say to an employer, look, you're a nice guy, but here's the price. If you don't pay, you're going to get shut down.
What initially happens is that the police on the waterfront were like beat cops, where that was their jurisdiction to walk the waterfront. And they knew the workers there, and so they initially were not very inclined towards violence against the workers, or, because they knew them. Later, the employer pressures the city to replace those beat cops with other cops from out of the area that are far less sympathetic. And so there's these clashes between the strikers and the police that happen after that get pretty heated.
On July 5th, police opened fire on the workers of San Francisco.
It all seems so much more tame today, the labor movement.
In a sense, it's true, it's tame. The labor movement is legal today. A lot of times it wasn't. Organization is legal. Unionism is legal. Strikes are legal. Not too many years ago, that wasn't the case. The right to observe picket lines, we had to fight like hell around here.
The longshoremen established a joint maritime strike committee, and that's a point where Bridges really stands out as a leader. He heads that committee, and that committee is charged with negotiating with the mayor and negotiating with the employer. After the general strike, with pressure from some of the more conservative unions, the longshoremen are sort of forced into submitting to arbitration. And so they submit to arbitration, and then there's an arbitration decision that is issued that establishes most of the demands that those workers had.
How do you feel now about those tumultuous events of the 30s here in San Francisco, of which you were such an integral part? How do you look back on them now?
They were wonderful. They were stirring historical days. And it was time and money and effort well spent, I think. And
Government agents conspired to destroy Harry Bridges by accusing him of being a member of the Communist Party.
I couldn't register there was no Communist Party. They put that out of business temporarily.
So that starts actually almost immediately, even during the 34 strike. There's an attempts to investigate him and his immigration status. So that actually starts in 34. They completely fail to show any connection with the Communist Party at that time, or to question the legitimacy of his immigration status at all.
But the truth of the matter is that all the evidence introduced against me in those trials by the government was 95% true.
What do you mean it was true? Were you sympathetic to communist causes?
Certainly, still am.
Were you a member?
No, that's the point.
Well, if 95% of what the government introduced as evidence when it was trying to deport you was right, were they right to try to deport you?
No. Finally, the court said that. When I say 95%, isn't it true that you went down to your workers and say, tie up those ships and don't ship that scrap pine to Japan? That was a crime as part of the charges. Is it true that you served on a national committee with a known communist, Louis Weinstock, advocating unemployment insurance in this country? Yeah. And old age pensions, yeah. Is it true that you advocated industrial unionism and rank and file control? Is it true that you advocate a labor party dedicated to the ownership and control of the means of production? I says, you're damn right, just like the post office.
I think that he should be judged on his work and his words rather than whether or not he was possibly a member of the party. I think that's a compelling question, but like a more compelling investigation is why there was such a concerted effort to call his legitimacy as a labor leader into question based on what his political beliefs were.
Did you ever change your mind about this country during the midst of that
No.
hounding by the government?
No.
I think you can't separate Harry Bridges, the man, from the work of the union and the changes in the union and the union industry.
If the old labels no longer apply, what is meaningful? How do you describe yourself?
I'm a trade unionist. I'm a worker. I'm a trade unionist, and that's my job, my number one job.
They call it the Mechanization and Modernization Contract, and it sort of radically changes their labor contract to address a lot of the loss of jobs that were caused by containerization and were going to be caused by containerization.
How did you hold on to what you knew yourself to be?
I had a bunch of guys down below that I represented, and if I made a mistake, and I made plenty and led with my chin, they'd throw me back.
So I think another legacy of Bridges' work and the 1934 strike is the integration of the waterfront. Harry Bridges went throughout the black community and went to black churches and gave them a promise, which is that if black longshore workers and the black community would support the strike, they would ensure that the union that they won was open to all workers regardless of race. And he kept to that promise after 34. And so they allowed black workers into the union with full membership rights.
Oh, the National Health Plan, if I had my way, I'd just organize a few days holiday where nobody would work until we had a National Health Plan. That's the one thing that works and that's understood. Just down tools and get going.
I think an interesting anecdote about him is that he was married 3 times, and his last wife was a woman named Noriko Sawada, and she was Japanese, and they fell in love. They decided to get married, and so they drove to Nevada to get married, and they were not allowed to get married because of her Japanese heritage. So they challenged this anti-miscegenation law in Nevada and successfully overturned that law.
Things have changed.
They sure have. In that sense, I agree.